the recording and actually get underway. So welcome to this webinar, how to use free online tools for mentoring. And for those of you who don't know me too well, my name's Rolfe, and I started over 30 years ago in working. It just switched off. Okay, so recording seems to be working now. So we do live in this online world, and it's provided a myriad of tools, and some of them can add real value to mentoring. So in this webinar, I'm going to talk about what we can actually use online and internet-based tools for, share with you some examples and invite you to share examples of how you can or how you do use them, and discuss which ones are worthwhile using. There's hundreds and hundreds. I'm just going to focus on a few that I use and invite your comments on the ones that you'll use. Now, I'm a bit out of my comfort zone here with this, I must confess, because I'm not a tech guru. I wouldn't want you to think that for one moment. I'm a specialist in mentoring, but like everyone here on the line, I've had to come to grips with some elements of online technology. And living in an online world. So I'll just give you some examples of what I've done and invite you to share your own experiences as well, so that we can all benefit from this exploration. I'm focusing on free tools in this webinar, and I'm not talking specifically about mentoring software or any specialist system that you pay for that's dedicated to mentoring. I just want to give you a bit of a heads up on this whole idea of free tools, because we need to be aware that all companies that put on or put out free stuff are pretty much commercial enterprises. And there are three main models for getting freebies online. The first one is the exchange model. You get a free ebook, a report, or other gift in exchange for your name, email address, and perhaps some other details. By accepting the freebie, you consent to receiving emails from the organisation that gave you the product. If you don't find what they send you valuable, you should be able to opt out of their mailing list. And this is how I operate. Many of you will have downloaded my free ebook, Mentoring Demystified, which by accepting that, you consent to joining my mailing list. You will then receive my newsletter, which comes out every second week, and you will also receive from time to time, maybe once or twice a month, a notification from me. Once a month it'll be of the free webinar that you're attending, but possibly once a month you'll also get some advertising from me. And most reputable people who do this, and certainly by law in Australia, down the bottom of the emails that you receive will be an unsubscribe link. So if you don't like what you're getting or it's not relevant to you, you simply go down and click and go through the process of unsubscribing. The other model is freemium to premium. You may have heard these terms before or not. What this basically means is you get a limited basic product or service for free. And the vendor hopes that you'll like it so much and find it so useful that you'll upgrade to the premium version, which is a paid service, and you'll either buy that or subscribe to that. The third main model that I've observed is the advertising model. You get to use the service, but you're subjected to advertising. And this is one that I use on screen at the moment. I'm showing you thesaurus.com. I use this quite a lot. It's like a thesaurus. You put a word in and you can get different meanings. So when I'm writing and looking for a different word, I use this. But what you'll see there is for my little search, I've got all this advertising on the page as well, including flashing lights and some noises and what have you, which can be very noisy, very distracting. So you have to put up with that if you want the free service. If I use this more than I do, I might upgrade and get rid of all that advertising. So they're the three different models. some companies combine all three approaches, and I just want to warn you that there are some disreputable operators out there, and I've found this myself. It can be very hard to escape once you sign up for something. There are some people who will actually sell on your email address to other marketers, and those that ignore the law when it comes to spam, just so you know. That said, there's a lot of great online tools that are worth using. So let's start by looking broadly at what you can do with these online tools. And many of you will have seen and perhaps used my mentoring strategy design model. And I'll put this in the handout for you, although it is on my website for you as well. This is about planning in the front end work that you do that results in a blueprint that clearly ties your mentoring strategy to important outcomes. So that's the first area you can see there on the left, that maps out how you'll achieve those outcomes and measure. Then the next phase is thinking about promoting mentoring. So your communication strategy, how you get across the message, the value of mentoring so that it's welcomed by all of your stakeholders. Then we move to planning about how you'll prepare participants, the training, and the methods by which you equip participants to succeed in mentoring. And finally, in the area of program support, this is where you put in place your structured program that should include ongoing assistance, follow-up, and feedback. So I think you can use free online tools in each of these areas. So I'm going to talk now about the actual purpose to which you can apply online tools in your mentoring program. So I've used online tools to promote or help my clients, excuse me, help my clients promote their mentoring program or mentoring generally amongst their staff, and to recruit participants to their program. You can also use it to communicate to participants during a program, so to keep that communication, that two-way communication flowing. Certainly, you can use online tools, and I recommend that you do, to educate and support participants by providing them with resources and various forms of discussion forums. And you can use online tools for feedback. So using this in your initial needs analysis, and also for gathering feedback during the program, and perhaps for part of your final evaluation process. And I'm going to give specific examples of each of these shortly. But firstly, I'd like to get some input from you. So I'm going to launch a poll now. So you're going to see coming up on your screen some options, and you can choose more than one of these. Let me launch that poll now. So you can choose any or all of these responses to the questions. How are you using online tools currently? Are you using it to promote your program and or recruit or match your participants? Are you using it to communicate with your participants during the program? Do you use it for education and support? Do you provide some resources, discussion forums? Do you use it for needs analysis? Or is there some other use for which you use online tools? And I'd really welcome it if you type in the question box other uses that you might use or specific examples. So just waiting while those votes come in now. I'm going to close that off in just a moment. I see about half of you have voted. There may be some who are on the telephone and can't vote in this poll. If you have voted, you might use this time to start typing into the question box. What is it you actually use online tools for? You might also talk about what. Okay, I see. I didn't give this option, did I, Deborah? Deborah is saying not using anything at the moment. Okay, John is saying I use no tools, which is why I'm on the webinar. Okay, we'll get you some specifics in just a moment. Okay, I'm going to close off this poll now, hoping most of you have voted, and I'm going to share the results. Okay, now they obviously add up to more than 100 because you could choose more than one option here. Okay, so Rachel says, I use online evaluation tool, a survey, to review how my mentor-mentee training session goes, but not for anything else. Rachel, I'm going to ask you perhaps to respond. I have played with using online evaluations, and I've found the response rates are quite low in terms of people actually taking the time to respond to online evaluations. So I've gone back to the old-fashioned hand out a written evaluation at the end of a session, because I can actually collect those, even though it means more work in collating. Felicity is saying we have an online resource centre with training videos and worksheets behind a login for mentors and mentees. And that's great having the login, because it would give you some indication of people actually using that resource. Okay, Marianne is saying we use Facebook extensively for keeping the mentoring participants connected. SurveyMonkey for quick feedback on events or quick evaluation. Okay, Davis says we use online tools to try and raise awareness of what the benefits of mentoring are, and to be proactive in developing mentoring rather than waiting till it's necessary. Okay, thanks for all those responses. You should also be seeing the results of the poll. So 45% of respondents use online tools to promote the program, recruit or match. 65% are using it to communicate with participants during the program. 65% also use it for education and support. And 70% are using it for needs analysis, feedback, or evaluation. Okay, interesting results there. And thank you to everyone who typed in. Feel free to keep typing in as we go along, and I'll check those comments as we go through. So there are so many different online tools that it can become overwhelming. Have you found that? Where do you start? But the ones I'm going to talk about generally fall into one of three categories coming up on your screen now. Email. Of course, we're all familiar, probably all too familiar with email, but I'm going to suggest three ways you can use it to educate, support mentors and mentorees, and the free online tool that lets you automate delivery so that you can, once you've designed it, you can set it up and pretty much forget about it. Likewise, you can harness the power of recorded media, audio, audiovisual, or written, so that you can create resources that you produce once and use again and again for as long as you want. So it's very cost effective, especially when it's free, except for your time. You can use this for education and support, and also to promote your mentoring program and recruit participants. And finally, I'll talk about the interactive media that require concentrated and ongoing input. These can be used for promotion, communication, education and support, engagement and feedback. I'll talk about what I've done in each of these, the tools that I've used, and invite you to share your own examples. I'll also give you some tips on making them work. And I'll pause and take questions as we go through. So I'm going to start with email. You mightn't think email is all that exciting, but there are many ways to use it for mentoring. And because your inbox is one of the most important places in your work life, it's simple and effective. The secret is to use automated emails as an e-course, to send regular mentoring tips, and or to prompt participants to do specific actions. The benefits of automated emails are you do the work once and then you can reuse it again and again for as long as you want. Using emails can reinforce or complement other learning, and it can help to keep people engaged in the mentoring process. Here's an example. Some of you will have experienced my complimentary e-course, Mentoring Strategy, 10 Keys to Excellence. And by the way, I will email you later today, and I'll provide a link to this e-course in case you haven't used it as yet. And if nothing else, it will give you an example of one way to use email, I think, quite effectively in your own mentoring programs. You can see here, this is the 10 Keys to Excellence e-course. There are 10 topics in the course. It actually came from an original article that I wrote of the same name. And then what I did was take those 10 topics, expand them a little bit, write one email for each topic, and then load them up as emails that automatically came out to those people who subscribed to the course. So it's there, it's done. I've done the work once quite intensively, but now whenever a new person signs up for the course, I don't have to do anything. The emails arrive automatically in their inbox at regular intervals. I've used the same method to deliver mentoring tips. And I've written 48 one-page articles on various aspects of mentoring. These answer questions I've been asked or succinctly cover a topic. Participants love these, and it's remarkable how often they say, oh, that was just so timely when it arrives in their inbox. So same concept. And the third way I've used this very same tool is to prompt action. So this is an example that encourages participants to access their online learning program. So you can use several different methods that complement one another. So this prompts them to access the online learning, and it also prompts them to make contact with their mentoring partner. Because it's amazing how time can fly by and mentoring can slip through the cracks in terms of your list of priorities. And people need prompts and reminders, otherwise mentoring can easily fizzle out. So these are 3 ways I've used the same tool, and this is MailChimp. Some of you might be familiar with this. Feel free to keep typing in your comments or questions there. MailChimp is a free service. It is the freemium to premium model. So it's one where they give you a basic plan. I have long since upgraded to the paid version, but it is quite generous, the free version. You can actually send up to 12 emails a month to a list of up to 2,000 subscribers. So for most of you, if you wanted to use this in your mentoring program, it would probably be free for you. There's a few features of the program that are only available to paying users, but there's certainly enough to make it very useful to you. Or you might have an internal system that you can set up automatically to email participants. So investigate that in-house. Talk to your IT people about what you can do to set up automated emails where you set it up on a program. So the 3 examples that I showed you previously, the e-course, the 10 Keys to Excellence, that goes for 10 days with 1 email daily. The mentoring tips are set up for my clients either weekly, every second week, or monthly, whatever they choose. And many of my clients actually put that on their own system and do it themselves in-house. And the third example, I think, went out every second week to a client organisation. So I'm just going to check to see if there are questions or comments. Okay, thank you, Sean. Appreciate your feedback there. Okay, so let's move on. Feel free if you've got a further question or comment. I'm keeping my eye on them as I switch slides. Okay, Sean is saying, we prompt people throughout the mentoring process through email. Mentors, mentees receive 3 reminders for each that's required. And Sean, I will mention, is from Mentor City, and they have a free match up service. Sean, I will get you to comment a little bit later in the webinar if you'd like to type in, or if you've got a microphone there, Sean, you can put your hand up and I'll come to you and you can tell people what they can access from free from Mentor City. Okay, I'm going to move on now. So we've talked about emails. I'm going to talk to you about recorded resources now. And then I'll pause again for questions. So recorded media, that is video, audio, and written. Let's talk about video first. Now, when I say video, you might be thinking lights, camera, action, all very expensive. No, I'm talking in this webinar, remember, about free. I'm actually talking about any kind of audio visual. I mean, not many of us actually use video anymore. I don't know. You know, where you used to put the tapes in, video tapes in the machine. Not many of us have those anymore. It's all DVD, but we still call it a video, don't we? And so video has become a term that for most people refers to any audio visual. And my favorite is a slide cast. And many of you will have seen these on my website. And if you haven't, the handout that I send to you later today will have links where you can see some of the videos I've made that are really, in reality, are called slidecast. So this is where you create a slide presentation, record audio, and put the two together. When it's done and uploaded onto a website, people simply press the play button that comes up, and they can watch and listen. They can pause it, rewind, fast forward, just like a video. Now, there is a fair bit of work involved in putting these together, but no monetary outlay if you do it yourself. You can do it without audio and just have slides that people can click through with some words on them as well as some pictures. Or you can put music as a background, which is easier, obviously, than doing a recorded narration, which can take a bit of time. I like slide casts or videos because they are very convenient, because people, once you've uploaded them to a website, people can access them 24/7 as often as they want. And when you upload them to, you can put them behind a password if you want to restrict access to them. I do that for many of my clients now, where I'll put up a video specifically for them, or a generic one, and make that accessible by a password for them. Videos like this are very convenient because they deliver bite-sized chunks, and one of my tips is to keep them very short. People's attention spans, particularly if they're not interacting, are very short, so you make very short bite-sized chunks of information. And they're also very useful because they actually embed learning, because you combine the audio and the visual modes. I've made several slidecasts for my clients to promote their programs and to recruit participants. I've also used them as online learning modules and pre and post live events to prepare for or reinforce learning. I've put together a slidecast on slidecasts for you to view, and the link will be in the handout later today. The tool I use is SlideShare. I've just put the little logo up there, and you can go online and search for that. You'll find it quite easily. I make my slides, and I tend to make most of my slides in a program called Keynote, but you can use PowerPoint as well. I then export them to a PDF and upload them to SlideShare. I record my audio narration, and I use, because I've got a Mac, I've got a program that comes with that called GarageBand, which I love for recording my audio narration. I can also use music. I save that as an MP3 and upload it to SlideShare. SlideShare then provides a synchronization tool that lets you put the two together. So you're seeing already that there is a fair bit of work involved in this. Again, I now use the paid version, which has some advantages, but I started out with the free one that carries advertising. So I would recommend, if you haven't used this before, don't race out and buy it. Use the free version, play with it, see if you like it. And then the payoff is the cost is that you're actually going to subject people to advertising, but that's okay. There are other programs that I haven't used, but I've heard recommended. One is called Screencast-O-Matic, which actually records your computer screen as you go. And if you only need music as your background, there's a really cool one called Animoto, which again, you can do things for free if you don't mind taking their advertising. And if you like that one, and it is cool, so for younger, if your audience is younger, that might be something you really would like to look at, then, and it's cool because of the transitions that you can actually do on something like SlideShare. You can really only do static transitions. Audio. You can do a recording of a talk, read an article, or do an interview with someone. You can turn that into an MP3. You can make it a public podcast on iTunes, or you can burn it to a CD, or make it downloadable as an MP3 behind behind a password. That becomes something you have to pay for pretty quickly if you are recording, uploading, and going to make it available to people as a downloadable MP3. But you can certainly do publicly available podcasts in iTunes. That won't cost you anything. And the CDs you can burn usually from your own computer to a CD that you can hand to people. So the cost is basically the CD production, and that's about it. So audio. And written, probably the most basic. You mightn't even think about this as an online tool, but you can certainly make it an online tool. So you can see there, and I think the written form is probably best for guidelines, checklists, and templates that you want people to use to provide a framework for their mentoring conversations. You can combine these, of course. Often my slide casts also have a handout or a worksheet or something like that. Guidelines you could do as an audio visual, but also have it as a written version. Checklist the same. You can do both, multimedia, so that you've got audio visuals and written as the backup that people can keep. My tips for making recorded material work are: number one, keep it short; number two, keep it really relevant; and number three, make it regular. You want this to create engagement for people, so it needs to be a regular thing that they kind of get into the habit of seeing, and then they'll look for it and be receptive to it. So I've talked about email and I've talked about the recorded media. Before I move on to the next one, the interactive, I'm going to pause for questions or comments. So I'm just scrolling through to see if there are any more questions or comments. If you have a question or comment on any aspect, the email or the recorded, or if you'd like to share with us what you've actually done yourself, this would be great. Okay. Looking for questions or comments. Just checking to see if anyone has their hand up. Okay, Cherie. Cherie, I see your hand is up. I'm going to come to you and open up your microphone. Hello, Cherie. Are you there? Did you want to make a comment or ask a question, Cherie? Okay, Cherie, maybe you're typing in. I'm looking. Okay, Cherie says, okay, I don't have a mic. Okay, Cherie. If you want to type in your question, that would be fine. Okay, so Davis, have you got a microphone? I'd love for you to talk. If you have one available, pop your hand up and I'll come and open it up. So Davis, now Davis is, now if I get this wrong, please correct me, Davis, the Indigenous Leaders Network of Victoria. And I know Davis uses social media quite a lot. And his comment is, an important thing to consider in all digital material is images. Yeah, and if you've ever been to a presentation and got one of those death by PowerPoint presentations, where you really want to go up and shake the presenters and say, hey, this is a visual aid. It's not something that you read from, and it's not something you want people to read as you're standing there live talking to them. Have a conversation, use the visual aid as a visual, and if you've got that much written information, give it as a handout, don't just read it. So yeah, your digital information needs to have visuals, and I'm going to give you a couple of tips on that, or in fact invite you for some comments in a moment. Okay, I don't see any more questions or comments coming in. Feel free to keep going if you want to type them in, because the last one, I want to spend some time talking about interactive media. Just going back. Okay, and Davis is adding, so Davis talked about it's important in your digital media to use visuals, pictures. And he also says, and asking the question, do my images reflect the narrative of mentoring I'm interested in telling? Yeah, and I think you do have to be, and I think you learn a lot by using images too. And you need to search widely for images that are relevant to your audience and relevant to your message. So thanks for that input, Davis. Keep your questions and comments coming. I'll keep an eye on them as I start on the last of our 3 areas now. We've talked about email, we've talked about recorded media, so the interactive. So whereas the previous types of media you can prepare, publish and reuse, live interactive online tools need your input continually. They include conferencing, social media and online communities. One of my own mastermind groups, so one that I attend monthly as a participant, uses free online video conferencing. And I also attend a monthly board meeting for the International Mentoring Association via free teleconferencing. Now, you'll have to search online to find what free teleconferencing is available in your country if you want to use teleconferencing. Personally, I'm a fan of video conferencing, and the one that I use is Google Plus Hangouts. Now, Google Plus is Google's version of Facebook, and it's growing fast. And I recommend in your actions, if you're writing notes and actions, and if you're not familiar with Google Plus, this is one to investigate. So Google Plus is different to Facebook in that you actually set up your own circles. You can separate friends, family, and professional colleagues, and you can decide who sees your post. So I want to acknowledge at this point and draw your attention up here to the top left-hand side of my screen now to my friend and colleague and mentor, Gihan Pereira. And Gihan has taught me everything I know about online tools. I accept all responsibility and blame if there's any misinformation or mistakes that I've made here. But I want to give Gihan Pereira all the credit. I wouldn't be doing this webinar today if it weren't for Gihan, who first introduced me to webinars and had my back by managing my early webinars for me remotely. So Gihan talks, and he has a blog and a web page, and I recommend you go look at his blog. Now, Gihan specializes in helping information experts. So people like me who have a field of speciality that they don't know a lot about, to get online and share that information in various commercial ways. So his material is obviously aimed at speakers and presenters and business people. But by looking at what he says and joining his free webinars and finding out and learning his information, it will really set you in good stead. So I do strongly recommend you take advantage. He does, once again, have a lot of free information available, as well as for people like me, it's very worthwhile taking his paid material as well. So the point of this slide, actually, as well as acknowledging Gihan's input, is to actually show you, this is a screenshot of the Google Plus page. And as you can see, it looks quite a bit like Facebook. Different people that I have connected with are posting. And as I mentioned before, the main difference between this and Facebook is that you can be quite selective and organize your circles. So it's a medium you can use both for social, for pleasure with your friends, or for the more business side of what you're doing. So Google Plus then has this added service called Hangouts. And what Hangouts does is provide free video conferencing that lets up to 10 people with webcams see each other and speak to each other online and show their screens if they want to. So you can have 10 people who can see each other, and what happens is that you see each other's pictures down the bottom of your screen, and you see your main screen will be the person who's actually speaking. I understand Barack Obama, President of the United States, has actually used this. He had 10 selected people visible, and hundreds more can listen in to the broadcast as well. So there are a lot of people out there using this medium. Okay. Davis is telling me he doesn't have a mic. That's a shame. I would love to have heard from you, but I'm loving your input, so thanks a lot. I'm just checking the questions here. Cherie says, I would like ideas for face-to-face activities in a mentoring midpoint session. Okay, we might do that as perhaps we could do that as another webinar. Okay. Yeah, so did I get that right? Davis is from Indigenous Leadership Network Victoria. And Davis said it's good to bring a camera everywhere and put together a photo release. And I've actually seen, and I'll go to Facebook shortly, so I'll talk about that one next. Okay, so Google Plus Hangouts is free video conferencing. Of course, most of you would be familiar with Skype. That also does free video conferencing. And I think that for mentors and mentorees who are remote from one another, I think encouraging them to use either Skype or Google Plus Hangouts or some other form of free video conferencing. And I know a lot of organizations now have their own closed video conferencing setups. It's amazing what a difference it makes to be able to see someone's face when you're interacting with them rather than merely hearing their voice on the telephone. So some tips on making conferencing work. It's just the same as any other meeting. And I'm surprised how few people actually waste their time in meetings when they don't have an agenda. My recommendation is every meeting needs an agenda, especially when it's online. Make it available to people before the meeting so that they can prepare and make good use of their online time. And speaking of time, have a definite start time and end time, and do start on time. I like to, when I'm having any sort of online meeting, I will do my utmost to get there early. So get online early, make sure the technology is working, sort out any problems if it's not working. And I noticed there were a good half dozen people on the line today, well before. I think I was online about 25 minutes before the start of the webinar, and there was at least one person on almost immediately, and then there was quite a few people on before we started. So thanks for that. I think it's really worthwhile because you can always use, once you're online and you know everything's working, you can always use that little bit of time, to check the last emails before you shut that down, to do any last things, to get yourself a cup of tea, or your pen and paper handy. So you can use that time. It's not wasted. And that also allows you to start on time, out of respect for people who are on time. You'll always get a few latecomers, but I think it's polite to the people who do show up on time, or even early, to start on time and also to end on time, and I'll be doing my level best to do that. That's why I'm speaking fast. And the third thing is to have someone who can lead, so a chairperson, as you would have in any meeting, but also someone who can maybe manage the technology. And once again, my mastermind is run by Gihan Pereira, and it's on all things online, and he manages that and helps us out. So that makes it very easy to participate. Okay, going to social media now. And some of you will know that I have a professional page. Now, the thing with Facebook, I'm talking about Facebook mainly here. Most of us use Facebook if we use it for social media. I use Facebook. My personal page is to talk to my friends, to keep in touch with my family. I post photos of my travels and talk about inane things that you talk about with your good friends. So I keep that completely separate, and I don't accept friendship from people I don't know on my personal Facebook page, nor do I friend people that I'm professionally connected with only. But what I do have, and what you can have on Facebook, is a professional page, a business page, and I do have one of those as well. So I strongly recommend, if you're using Facebook for a mentoring program, that it is a professional page, not a personal page that you use. You can, if you wish, make it a private group, which means you have to people have to apply. They can't just be, to friend, they can't choose you. They can apply and you choose them. So my Facebook page for Mentoring Works is there. You can also see the Indigenous Leadership Network of Victoria, who has a page, and the Uganda Youth Mentoring Program. And what I do is, if I see something worthwhile from any source, I will share it on my own page. When I see things from Indigenous Leadership Network of Victoria, I will often share that on my page. And if you have a private web page for your mentoring program, let me know so that I can like it for you as well, and let me know if you have things that you would like to share there. So Facebook is, you can set up closed Facebook groups, and I belong to 2 mastermind groups who have a closed page, 2 or 3 actually, where not everyone can join that group. You can have hidden pages, hidden groups if you want to, or private groups. So you can set those up as you wish. Okay, so if you have questions or comments about Facebook, type them in now. I'll pause for a moment to respond to those. But I thought I would save the best to last. And this is, and so many of you will be have membership in the Mentoring Network Online, which is my example of an online community. The tool I use for this is Ning, N-I-N-G, Ning. And again, it has a free version which you can use, which actually has advertising associated with it. I have since upgraded to the paid version, which carries no advertising except, of course, my own. And most of you will know that you can join the Mentoring Network online for free from time to time. I promote it in the newsletter. You can also go to the website if you're not a member and look at the pull-down menu, which has Mentoring Network, and you'll see details about it, and you will be able to join that network. What you'll see in this network is in a way, it's a bit like a private, closed Facebook. You'll see here that there are members. I'm just pointing to that on my screen now on the right-hand side. Many people choose not to put their photos up there, but others do put their photographs there, which makes it a lot easier and a lot more personal. So you can make contact with other people. There are 600 members of the Mentoring Network at the moment, and you can go through and see if there's someone from your local city so that you can connect with someone who's local to you, and maybe take your connection networking offline and have real face-to-face contact if they're willing to do that. You will also see that there's some pointers here about what you can do in the Mentoring Network. Then we have our resource centre in the middle. This is where you can download complimentary resources. This has a password which is printed here. So what you would do, this is not a live web page. This is a screenshot taken when I was preparing the slides. So you can see there are, and I think there's 40 or more different resources. So there's slidecast, there's PDFs, there's audio recordings in each of these categories, as well as some more. So we've got ebooks, articles, etc. So a resource centre there that you can access. Down the bottom here is a forum. So in this forum, you could put your question that you wanted to put out to the network. I always respond to questions, and I encourage other members of the network to contribute their ideas as well. So posts, latest activity, our webinar calendar that I see needs to be updated here. Okay, so you can set up for free your own closed online community like this one. The free version means that you will have advertising on it. If you try it and you like it, then if you wish to, you can choose to upgrade to a paid version. And I'm sure there are other things apart from Ning that do this for you. You might have something in-house that works for you as well. Okay, just checking for questions. Okay, I'm seeing that Sean has his hand up. Now, Sean, I'm going to come to you and invite you to talk about what you have available for free on Mentor City. We've only got a few minutes left, Sean, and I have a couple of other things to comment on. So, Sean, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
I can hear you, but you're rather faint. So perhaps move closer to the microphone, or if you can turn it up a bit, that would be good. Or maybe it's me.
Sure.
Ah, that's good.
Well,
Excellent. Coming through loud and
okay.
clear.
That's great. Well, it's great to be here. I'm really excited about this topic. Thank you, Anne. My name's Sean Mintz. I'm the president of Mentor City, and I'm from Toronto, Canada. So it's great to see others from Toronto being here as well. Mentor City is the e-harmony of mentoring. So just like eHarmony matches people to relationships, what Mentor City does is it matches mentees to mentors. Then it leads them through that entire mentoring process. So there's a free site. So it's a public site that anyone can join by going to mentorcity.com. And then we also create private label communities for organizations. So I just wanted to let you know about Mentor City and let you know that I'm really excited about being part of Anne's webinar tonight or today for you.
Thank you so much, Sean, for that. So again, you can see that there's lots available out there for free. And but as I said at the outset, you know, many times you have the opportunity to then, if you like the service, to go on and use it on a paid basis. I'm going to invite any more questions and comments. I'm going to check and see what's coming through now. If what I do want you to do in these last few minutes too, is to make sure that you have taken some notes, and you might like to type in actually your key takeaways. So I've run through quite a few tools for you. Some of those I'm sure you have been familiar with, but I'm wondering perhaps I've given you a bit of thought about, a bit of food for thought about a different way you might be able to use that very familiar tool. So jotting down now, get real value from this by jotting down for yourself key takeaways and actions that you're going to take. You've invested an hour of your time here today. I really want you to go away and do something with what you have gained or thought about. I'm just checking to see if there are any more hands up from people who have microphones. And if you want to type in a question or a comment or share with us what your key takeaway or action is from this webinar, and I'll read those out as they start to come in. I'm going to give you, we've still got a couple of minutes on to go on our webinar. So whilst you're typing in your question, your comment, your key takeaway or your action, I just want to quickly remind you, you've still got a little bit of time to take advantage of our end of year bonus. And that is any purchase from the website or any purchase at all until the end of the financial year, which here in Australia is the 30th of June. And you're going to receive access to two of my videos. Mentoring Getting Started, which is for people who are being mentored, so your mentees, mentorees, and Mentoring Where to Start for mentors. So those are videos that are available behind a password. And if you make any purchase at all before the end of this month, you will have free ongoing access to both of those. So just seeing some comments and questions coming in now. Okay, so Davis says, I like your idea about prompting actions. I'll look into the slidecast a bit more, and Ning, and thanks for the mention. You're welcome, Davis. You're doing great work down there. And I did forget, I wanted you to look at one of the examples that I showed you. When you watch the recording, take a look at those examples I showed you of the e-courses that I use MailChimp for. With the exception of the mentoring tip, which is fairly dense text, it's a one page of text. The others that I showed you are laid out with lots of white space and some visual. There's usually a picture. I think one of them has a tick box, dot points, 1, 2, 3 points, all carefully designed not to clutter up the page and to keep it short and readable using the HTML format, which is the main advantage of MailChimp. Okay, so Gail is saying, key takeaway, Google Plus Hangouts. Yeah, go have a look at that. Rachel is saying, I like the idea of combining automated emails with links, hints, tips. And we have an internal SharePoint site, which I now have some great ideas that I can look at setting up an internal portal for our mentees to be able to interact and engage more frequently. Thank you. This has been a terrific webinar. Oh, I appreciate your feedback, Rachel, and great ideas. Wendy is saying, key takeaway, sharing how you went about your learning, appreciative of your transparency. Oh, hey, look, I'm astonished when I look back, just 2 or 3 years ago, being so daunted by the technology and thinking, oh my goodness, you cannot put your head in the sand with this. And that's another reason why I really encourage you to encourage your participants to get online, to use some of these free tools, because my goodness, if we want to stay in the workforce and stay relevant, we've got to use online tools. So we may as well get used to it. Okay, so thanks, Anne. So this is from Marianne. Another useful seminar. We'll follow up Animoto. Yeah, I'm sorry. I did have in my notes that I was going to take you to show you um, a cool Animoto example, but I'll put that in the link. I'll put a link in the handout, which is going to come to you. It'll be later on this afternoon, so look for it in your inboxes a bit later on. But I'll give you a link to Animoto, their own website, because obviously their promo is one of the best. But I'll also show you what a colleague of mine is doing with Animoto. So there'll be a link to that. Google Plus, Ning in particular. I had one of the greatest successes with a Ning online community. A few years ago, I ran a program. I'm sorry I'm going over time. If you have to go, I understand. But I just want to share this example with you. I coordinated a program for women right around New South Wales. And New South Wales is a very large state. And we had 90 participants in that program in many different places, locations throughout the state. And we set up an online Ning site, not too dissimilar to the one that I'm showing you here. It had all of their online resources. It allowed them to make contact with one another. This was actually before I did webinars, so we had a lot of teleconferences, and we would then take the conversation online. So we'd run a teleconference, and then we'd invite people to continue in the forum. So this forum you see down here on the page, and people could actually talk to one another there, pose their questions, make their comments. They could actually upload their own resources as well. And it was just so successful. And we also had a lot of live networking. So people would find each other online, and you might have two people in two different organisations in the same town who found each other online. And Sean talked about eHarmony, matching up people, and it's a good analogy because these people would find each other online and say, hey, we're in the same town, let's meet up for coffee, in a professional and business sense, I hasten to add. But it was so rewarding because part of this program was about reducing the isolation that these women felt in remote locations. So I class that as a real success for that program. Okay, seeing some more comments coming in. Lorraine says, thank you for the practical and clear info. Cheers, Lorraine. Ethel is saying, happy to know about MailChimp, Google Plus and Ning. We'll explore them. It's good to be tech savvy. Yeah, we are. I guess I will claim to be a little bit tech savvy these days, but it wasn't always so. And finding other people who can help you out is key to that. And I was really fortunate. As I told you, I have a really good mentor. He's a mentor to this day, Gihan Pereira. I've only talked about a few tools. There are so many more out there, but I'm talking about the ones that I know and feel confident to recommend. Okay, that's all the comments or questions I see. I'm going to hang around for a little bit longer if you do want to keep typing in. I understand those of you have to go. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Deb. Thanks, Davis, and thanks so much for your input. Okay, enjoy your follow-up meetings. David says, excellent webinar and fantastic tools to have a look at. David says he uses Evernote to take notes and share. David, I'd love to hear more about that. I've got Evernote on my computer, but I confess I don't use it. John, thanks for the informative webinar. Must go. Cheers. Rachel. Okay, people have to go now. If you want to stay on the line, I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer. If you have questions or comments, that's happy to hear them. And I do hope that you took some notes and have some good actions from this webinar. And I will send out to you a handout later today that has some links. And for those of you listening to the recording, there will be a handout for you to download that has those links somewhere near this webinar. And thank you very much for listening.